Well.
Okay. Do you want me to go again?
You
or-
go, yeah.
That's perfect.
Yep.
Say it at the same time. Well.
Welcome back to the
the
Crooked
Crooked
Smile
Smile
podcast,
podcast.
brought to you by Macamedia. That was really cringe.
By two C grade premiership winners of the West Australian Water Polo League.
C grade.
C grade winners.
Yes. Yeah, so
Applause, Robbie.
We're
Applause.
We're at the pool still.
Yeah. I should have won my medal.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It was a thrilling encounter yesterday between us and the Dolphins.
Anyways, today's episode we have on chiropractor Pat.
Pugliese. Patrick Pugliese.
Yes, I struggle with the Italian pronunciations, but
Pugliese.
Gianni's got it on lock. So today's a really
Yes.
interesting episode. We talk about why a chiropractor is important, how it helps sort of your general wellness overall with your life, Pat's origin stories.
Really interesting link between, because obviously the main picture that comes to people's heads when we talk about chiropractic help is, cracking backs, and that's about it. But lots of stuff just about, general life tips and wellness and how it can link to not mental health, but,
Like physical health with headaches, that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Stretching, daily stretching is a big one we talk about.
and how posture is really important for confidence reasons, not just, making sure you don't have a crappy back when you grow up.
But before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed, because there's still 70% of you guys that aren't subscribed that are watching these. Or if you're listening on the Spotify, chuck us a follow, rate the podcast 5 stars.
As a great man once said, it costs nothing to like and subscribe.
It costs nothing and requires nothing to like and subscribe.
Anthony Kane said that.
So make sure you're
Thanks,
commenting. Comment down below what you thought of the episode. We'd love to hear from you guys. Follow the Instagram. It's where we're interactive. We'll be posting some questions for next week's episode in the Instagram this week. Otherwise,
Let's crack onto it.
let's get in the show. Welcome back, everyone. We've got Dr. Pat
Pugliese.
here.
Pugliese.
So, Pat, thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Absolute pleasure. Great to be here.
For the audience, Pat is a certified chiropractor
Indeed.
and doctor.
Well, that's a grey area. We are allowed to use the title due to our, long university degree, 5 years studying a lot of medical-based study, but I tend not to use it too much out of respect for what we would call a medical doctor, but we are entitled to use the term a bit like vets or dentists do. However, I don't really advertise that too much.
I was going to ask.
You're modest.
I was going to ask, what is the friction there? Because people always talk about chiropractors. Is it the same with dentists and vets, where they don't have the same?
I think they jump on us a bit more about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. But look, it's not. It doesn't never really meant much to me. That's not why I got into it.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just sort of, I shoot. It's probably shut down the conversation really just by not using the title too much. But it is something we are allowed to use.
There you go.
We do have to clarify it by saying Dr. Patrick Pugliese, chiropractor, so people don't think we're a medical doctor. So that's really the only rule around it. But look, I think that out of respect to medical doctors that do even more study than we do around the body and medicine, I just feel that's the right thing for me to do. But everyone has their own take on it.
I think you should. Anyone working with the human body and doing pretty high level stuff should all be. You can all be doctors in my eyes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You can be a doctor with a PhD. So there's lots of people that use the title. Yeah.
So I've got a quote from your website here. Long-term healthy habits create lifelong healthy bodies.
Yeah.
So did you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, look, it's a big thing I prescribe to. Look, you can't do a whole lot of rubbish to your body and then one little thing when it's too late and think, well, that's going to change the world. So, having had a lot of injuries, I've done a lot of heavy sport in my life, and I know if I each day do X, Y, and Z, I can perform how I want to. But you can't go and eat junk food, not use your body well, never exercise, and then just, get to 50 and go, oh, gee, I wonder why I can't do all the things I want to do. So it's something you have to start doing, your guys' age really, before it gets too late. It's much easier to maintain it rather than go, well, hey, I've let all this go. Let's try and backpedal now and see what we can do. So it's just, and I don't preach it to people. It's look in the clinic, if people need a little bit of guidance and advice, I just try and give them little tidbits along the way. So, you don't want to be the person preaching to people. It's just like, look, have you thought about this? Why don't we do this here? Let's think about that. Are you drinking enough water, for example? And you'd be amazed, people come in and I'm like, they say they've got stinking headaches. I say, well, how much water do you drink each day? Oh, I don't really drink any water. Well, that's probably a good start. So, there's no point in me treating them a whole heap and then their actual body's not able to perform like it's meant to. So it's about just helping people on the journey, really. Yeah.
So speaking of the clinic, you have your own clinic, Floreat Chiropractic Clinic.
Yeah, that's my practice, yeah.
For the audience, what type of services do you guys provide to just everyday clients?
Yeah, look, it's quite varied. Look, I incorporate, what most people perceive as being chiropractic, where we manipulate the spine, but we also, most of my clients would have a combination of either dry needling, muscle adhesion release, or, we might talk about it a bit more later, but I use ShockWave on probably 50% of my patients, which is quite a new thing. And we're using that to break down scar tissue or adhesions that can really hold people back with their injuries. So it is mostly chiropractic related, but I guess I blend chiropractic with a few other things these days. So it is a chiropractic clinic, first and foremost, but we do offer other services that you might find within other types of healthcare practices as well.
Yeah. So, I guess how did that journey start? How did you become interested in chiropractic?
Yeah.
Practice. I don't know what
Being
it's
a chiropractor, yeah. Well, how long have we got, guys? This might take a while. Yeah. Look, it's an interesting thing, and I think we all have these moments in our life where it's a bit of a light bulb type situation, and hopefully you guys will have this multiple times in your life, and you think, oh, gee, that really makes sense to me. So, as I think we all are at school, we're quite active, and I just always seem to have a sore low back, and no one could really put their finger on it. And I saw a few people with limited success or different success. And then around year 11, I think it was, I had this massive goal I was a rower at Trinity and I really wanted to get into the first 8. And my back was stopping me from training like I wanted to. So someone said, look, go and see this guy. He's great. He was a chiropractor. And he took an x-ray of my back and he explained it to me in a way that just made sense. And I said, okay, no one's explained that to me before. And he, had a number of sessions with him and suddenly I was like, okay, it's significantly better. It wasn't perfect, but I was able to do the things I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, that really worked. I can remember clearly the day he said, there's your problem there. And he pressed on it and I went, oh yeah, that's pretty sore, and then he did his thing. And then I thought, okay, well it made sense to me straight away. So beyond that time, I continued to see a chiropractor sort of every 4 to 6 weeks and keep my body as good as I could. And I noticed after about a year, I thought, gee, I haven't had a migraine for about a year, which I used to have all the time. So I sort of went, okay, there's a bit more to this than just my low back. So it was always in there in the back of my mind. And then, look, being a young guy, I kind of really couldn't be bothered studying straight out of school. So I went overseas and I was working in restaurants and seeing the world and having a good time. And chiro was a bit far from my mind, but I did start seeing a chiro when I lived in London. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty good again. So I was super busy running restaurants, looking to set up a restaurant in London, but I was knackered. I was just working so hard. And my chiro just said to me one day, he goes, Pat, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm working here doing that blood. And he goes, no. What are you doing? He goes, you look terrible. You're tired. He goes, you obviously love chiro. He was a Canadian guy, great guy. And I remember this. He goes, you love chiro. He goes, why don't you study chiro? And I just went, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. He said, yeah, you could. So I went home and I spoke to Mel, who was my girlfriend, now my wife. And I said, I think I'm going to go back to Australia and study chiro. And she goes, mate, you're crazy. So anyway, that was the sliding door. So I was like, well, I could stay in London and open a restaurant, or I could go back to Australia and study chiro, which, I think that was going to be my passion, I felt. Luckily I did, because the GFC came and all the restaurants in London actually went boom, and I was back here studying chiro. So that was how
it is sliding doors.
Yeah, the final it came, but it was a big decision. We had a great life over there, and things are going pretty well for us. But it's like, it could have gone either way. But luckily, here we are having a chat now, living in beautiful Perth, going to the beach whenever we can. So
you were raised in Perth?
Yeah, I grew up in Perth. Then when I was 18, I kind of hightailed it out of here and spent about 15 years living.
15.
Wow,
yeah.
That's a big move to just get up and go after school to.
Well, part of that was So I lived in London, did some time in Italy, lived in Canada, and then 5 years of that was obviously studying in Melbourne. I studied over east, so that part of that time I was over east studying. And then when I graduated, I had a great opportunity to come back here, and we just had a baby, and I thought, hey, you know what, growing up near the beach and Perth's a great lifestyle, so we came back here, and luckily I found a clinic for sale in Floreat, and I was like, oh, look, great near the beach, it's where I want to be. So here, that's how it all ended up.
Favourite place you've lived?
Oh, that's tough. You know what? Melbourne's a cool place.
Melbourne?
Yeah. Europe's good. Yeah, I like footy. Yeah, I love sport, love all sport.
Yeah.
But just I think Melbourne's got everything. It's got a bit of the European feel to it. It's got good style. It's got great sport. It's still clean and safe. I do miss Europe though.
Was it going to be an Italian restaurant in London? Or what particularly were we?
Yeah, it was going to like a Mediterranean, I guess. Yeah, It was going to be like a wine bar restaurant type scenario. Yeah.
Maybe is that a future goal to
Well,
go
you
back
know,
and do
yeah,
that
I
again?
do miss it. I do miss it.
Start one here.
Well, I do miss it. Yeah, yeah. It's a maybe. Yeah, that might be. The doors
Yeah.
might slide again, and I'll go back to it one day.
Doors
We'll see.
slide back open.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm getting a vibe now that chiropractors are also like life coaches in some sort of sense, because that seems like a very, you don't expect your medical professional to, go look at you, mate. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But that's really cool.
Well, that's pretty intuitive comment, actually. I think if you spoke to a lot of my clients, I think, we do, and obviously nothing goes beyond the room we're in, but people do tell me a lot of things. And I do feel sometimes, they like to get the advice from someone who's partial, that they know, they're not going to go and gossip back around the circle and get back to them kind of thing. So, there is quite a bit of that. I'd say, look, it's part of health. There's mental health is huge, and like if we're a practitioner that they trust and can open up to, that's part of it as well. So, I think when people say, what is chiropractic, there's lots of layers to it, and it all comes down to you as a person as well and what you're happy to give.
Right.
Perfect.
And I guess the link there is sorry to keep hopping up, but the link almost is the stress, right? Like obviously if you've got issues, posture issues, something like that can be done by stress, and maybe that's the link between mental health, physical health. Yeah, I don't know. We're always trying to link between mental health, physical health, but maybe
so the guy that invented chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, 100 plus years ago, I can't remember exactly. His whole premise was that you're unwell because your brain that controls the body controls the body via your spinal cord. That's how the nervous system works. So the messages go from your brain out to your body, or more importantly, the messages go from your body up to the brain. The brain says, what I need to do here, and then the messages go back down. So he started this all, that they say he cured a deaf man or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but he found a spot in the back that was all locked up, and he adjusted that, and the guy could hear again or something.
Wow.
I don't know if I buy into it too much, but that's how he thought about it. He thought about that the health of the body runs through the spine. So that's how it started. It's changed a lot since then, but that was where it all stemmed from.
So speaking of those changes, I know you mentioned off camera that your clinic provides a bit more than the typical chiro. So did you want to kind of talk about that?
And that is what people say about what we do, and it's probably why I have a lot of, thankfully, very loyal customers, clients. Look, when I started off, because I had only ever experienced chiropractic in terms of someone manipulating my spine, and that was all. And that was, I loved that. That was great, and I worked in clinics when I first graduated, and that was what we did. We took an x-ray, we analysed the x-ray, we did very specific decision-making on why we would adjust certain parts of the spine. And, a lot of the time people responded very well. So that was great. But, as I went on, I thought, look, there's got to be more. Is there a better way? What else can we do here? So I kept trying to find new things to add in. The cornerstone of the principle was still healthy movement of the spine, people feel and move better, happier nervous system. And then luckily, probably around when I bought my clinic, actually about 7-8 years ago, I came across a guy in America who is a chiro, but he specifically focuses in breaking down adhesions, not only around the spine, but specifically around the spine. So adhesion is where a muscle, due to poor posture or trauma, the muscle doesn't slide on itself properly anymore, or even better, if you can find where a nerve is caught on the muscle, okay, and the nerve doesn't slide. That's a big pain generator. So I travelled to America a couple of times to train with him. He's a pretty intense guy, but everything he taught me, I couldn't argue with. It was all based on fact, or he would go and find some research from, some neurosurgeons and say, well, look, based on this research, we know this, so that has to move better. And I sort of sat back and went, this guy's on the money, So he came up with a system of analysing and measuring these adhesions and then a way to break them down. So I started off with that, and that was really great. So people immediately noticed some great changes. And the good thing with it is we can measure those and track those changes. So it's no longer just like, well, this is where you can feel your spine sore. I can actually say, well, look how far that moves. Based on, the 5 neck exams, this is the primary one we need to deal with. And then, we can say, well, look, now you're up to the required number. We can move on to the next point, or we can discharge you, if you're feeling better. So it gives us a better framework, and people can say, hey, not only do I feel better, but I know that it's moving better. So we start off with that, and that was very manual hands based. And then around COVID time, he got in touch and said, look, Pat, I've come across a better way of doing this. And I said, well, I don't doubt that, Bill. You're a pretty smart guy. He's way smarter than me. And he said, but, you have to invest in this ShockWave machine. And I was like, all right, this is COVID. This is COVID.
Is this a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, this is COVID. Do I really want to drop 20 grand on a ShockWave machine?
20 grand.
Yeah. But, so I said, look, Bill, can we back off on this? And he said, well, I'm cutting you off. You're not going to be part of my
of your
group
Ponzi
anymore.
scheme.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I said, well, that's fine. See you later. I had to go crawling back to him a couple of years later.
Yeah.
So ShockWave's been it's not just a chiro thing. It's used widely in medicine by a lot of different practitioners. I know you had a urologist on recently. I believe some urologists use it as well for certain things. So physios would use it, say for example, for healing a tennis elbow or a plantar fascia problem. It's quite commonly used for. So Bill in America came up with ways to treat the spine with it, to break down the scar tissue around the spine. So it's the same premise. There's things that aren't moving properly. It uses a sound energy which splits apart any of the scar tissue, but it can go a lot deeper than we can get with our hands. So we're using that extensively in the clinic at the moment. And whilst there are a number of people that use ShockWave, there's only a handful of us in Perth that have trained under Bill and use it in the way we do to break down spinal adhesion. So it's a bit of a different thing. So we're still working on increasing the movement, the motion, making sure our tests are improving, but rather than it predominantly being hand, we're using the ShockWave as well. And people are loving it. They really like it.
So this Bill guy's kind of like the godfather of chiropractors.
Look, he's a polarizing guy. So like you've got to would I have a beer with him? I probably wouldn't. He's cool.
Hopefully Bill doesn't listen to the
podcast. Yeah. But when someone's as on the ball as he is, like you got to say, well, look, mate, I'll learn this off you and happily pay you. But
so it is a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, well, no, he's done well out of it. But then there comes a point where you go, right, well, I've taken as much as I can from, and you guys have come across this, you learn a lot from someone and then you kind of meld it with the other stuff you've learned and you make your own way with it. And there's certainly a few of us in Perth that are doing the same thing, that we have pretty big chats about it and discuss cases that we've been dealing with and find slightly better ways to do it. So we've got enough of us, there's a few of us in Perth now that can do it. So we don't use Bill as much anymore, but not to say I wouldn't go back to him.
Not for a beer though.
Not for a beer. He's a pretty stubborn guy. We said, he makes you fly to America for the training. And we said, hey, look, there's like 5 of us here. Can we pay you to fly here?
And he sells you the equipment as well?
Oh, no, we buy that in Australia. Yeah. I think he tried to. We're like, no. And he said, no, he just flat out wouldn't. We were going to pay for him to come out. He just flat out wouldn't. He goes, no, if you want to be part of it, you've got to come here.
He's a mysterious figure, this
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, he is.
Bill the chiropractor.
Yeah, he wouldn't come on this podcast. That's for
sure.
No.
Damn, that's all right. That was my next question.
Yeah.
No, so it's obviously in the past it's been 100% hands-on.
Yeah.
Very hands-on practice, right? And now what would you say if you were to give like a percentage?
Oh, look, everyone will still get hands-on. It just, if there'll be, 2 or 3 areas that are better suited to the ShockWave machine. Okay. So for example, like down the side of the neck, that's better suited to my thumb because it's quite close to the surface and we don't want to be shocking into the front of the neck there. But, through someone's traps or their low back, these sorts of areas where it's a bit thicker and deeper, the ShockWave's far superior.
So for Campbell with such broad, strong shoulders, right? You have to get those ShockWaves.
Have you had some implants in there or something? Those things are like.
I haven't. Is this one of your? Have you been? Is Campbell a patient of yours?
I've been once.
Because he's so fit and healthy, like he only needed one. You know what I mean?
So they're Rye neck.
Lifelong healthy habits.
Rye neck. Oh, Rye neck's a killer.
Yeah.
I remember waking up one morning with a Rye neck.
I think I've got the ShockWave on me.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
On the back of my neck.
Yeah.
There you go.
One
customer.
One session and he was
sorted. One session. Yeah. And I love it because I've got a really good. I remember going to one physio and I don't think I go there anymore. But I remember there was the kind of philosophy of this physio was, and he might have just been saying that to try and say, look, I'm a good bloke, like da-da-da. The philosophy was, let's get you out of here as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like overcharge you and drag out these things. And I think people are obviously very suspicious all the time of medical professionals. But
look, that's a something that people say, that for sure, 100%. I think we discussed like what are some of the myths about chiro or something like that. Like, that you've got to come, hundreds of times or something like that. No one has to come at all, at the end of the day. Like all you're doing is recommending the best thing for people. And whilst I probably say the same thing he says to some people, it's like, if they're worried, you say, look, we'll get the work done and we'll get you out of here as quick as we can. Yeah. And then I said, once people are better, I say to them, look, it's up to you. If you feel great and you want to stay feeling like this and you think you'll benefit from periodic care, well, let's talk about that. But if you want to call me when you're in trouble again, that's fine too. Yeah. But I think it's also dangerous to under prescribe to people because if you can sort of knock the head off something and they can be feeling a bit better, but you haven't fixed the problem. So there's 2 ways to look at it. So I just give people options. You say, look, mate, what do you want? Do you just want to feel a bit better or do you want X, Y, and Z to be better? if your next one's to be better, I might have to see you this many times. If you just want to feel a bit better, we'll catch you up till you feel better. So you empower the person that way. And then, if I then give them a few tips along the way, they say, okay, yep, right, I can see what you're trying to say now. And it's no different. Like pain's no different to healing a broken leg. It takes time.
Yeah.
So for someone who's had something for a long time, it might take 6 or 12 months. For someone like you who's fit and young, it might take one visit, So you can't put everything in the pigeonhole. But people are concerned because they have had experience where someone said, oh, you've got to come lots and lots of times. So look, certainly I wouldn't say that's wrong necessarily in all cases, but it's not correct for every case. So that's where you've got to make a decision.
Well, I feel like definitely from an outside point of view, with people coming to a chiro, if you have an injury per se and you come to the chiro to have that injury fixed, a chiro is really good at finding the cause of the problem and not so much just treating the symptoms and solving it.
Well, that's what we would like to say. Yeah, definitely. And that's sometimes tricky. That it's not
a bit of overlap sometimes with just treating the symptoms but focusing on the cause of the symptoms as well.
Yeah, exactly. But look, I think, if you came back to what does a chiropractor do, I think, I look at, and look, I've got lots of friends that are physios and very good physios, and we cross-refer to each other quite regularly. So, that's another thing as well. They say, oh, do physios and chiros not like each other? Well, I wouldn't say that by any stretch of imagination. You've got to play to your strengths. So the physios that send people to me know I'm good at certain things. But if you came to me with a shoulder injury from swimming and you needed an extensive rehab program and track strengthening, I'm not the person for that. So I see my job as I get things moving. I can give you some advice to maintain that, or some simple stretching or strengthening, like fairly, that'll suit most people. But if you've got some major problem or something ongoing that needs more rehab, that's not my bag. So I'd rather say, hey, I've got you this far, but you're going to need to go and see so-and-so because he's great with shoulders or great with whatever. So that's what you've got to know your limitations as well, because there's no point trying to keep someone happy that isn't your strength. That's in every career, I think, as well. If you've got a special focus on something, you don't want to take on those customers that are outside your focus, because they're not going to be happy. They'll waste money and time. So you're better to say, hey, look, you know what? This is what I do. Go and see that person. They'll fix it up for you.
Do you get many people that come in with some injury or issue that's just completely irrelevant to being a chiropractor?
They think if you crack their back that they're going to be just
magical fix on their
yeah, there are some pretty weird ones that come in, and but probably for confidential, I shouldn't go into them too much. But no, a guy did come in with a pretty. It was funny. He came in talking about some back pain, but then I think it was the very end of the consult. It was a much more detailed bloke problem that he had, and I was like, I don't think I'm your guy.
Right.
But that's okay. He felt comfortable with me by the end to say it. But you've, as I said, I think the funniest ones are when people come in like absolutely like can't even lie on the table, and they're like, oh, can't you just like put the bone in? And I'm going, well, you can't even get on the table, mate. You know what I mean? Like, so, and there's people that come in with stuff that need to be in hospital. You're like thinking, mate, you literally need to go and get this properly checked out. So I think, you've got to understand, if it's not a case you can help with, you need to get them out as well, because it can be dangerous. Like some people are scared of chiro. Like, let's talk about that as a myth. Not a myth, it's a reality. Can people get hurt? Well, you need to look at the person and say, is there a risk involved with treating this person with a manipulation? And if there is a risk, you've got to say, well, we're not going to do it. Or, if someone's coming in, there's a massive red flag, that's something that's not a simple mechanical problem, you've got to get them out of there and get it checked out. So it's not about is it dangerous or am I going to hurt them? If you make a good clinical judgment and you run through the tests that we're meant to do, you can stack the odds in your favour that it's going to be very, very safe. Nothing's 100% of the time. Getting in your car and driving down the street is dangerous. Really, there's plenty of nutters on the road. So as long as you go through the clinical process, you make sure you're checking off everything you're meant to, it is extremely safe. But it's about knowing, hey, this isn't the person for me and what I do. Send them somewhere else. And I do a fairly firm treatment, and there's some people that do quite a gentle one. So it's like, well,
right.
if someone comes into me and they're really nervous and they don't want a firm treatment, well, obviously I'm not going to give them a firm treatment. So then I might just say, hey, look, there's so-and-so that might be better suited to you. So it's understanding where you fit into the picture.
Okay, I'm intrigued by this firm versus not as firm treatment. So is the effect, or is the result the same, or is it the more deep set issues that you usually have to see?
Yeah, I think if someone doesn't want the type of treatment I provide, which is a firmer, more solid type of treatment, well, they're probably going to flare up and get sore is the main thing. Is the outcome the same? I think the outcome might take a a fair bit longer maybe with a more
yeah.
gentle type of treatment, but that's not to say it's the wrong treatment. Okay, so if someone's really, you know, we were talking about different characters and things like this. If someone's a really nervous, tense person, you need to give them time to relax into it. So the chiropractor's got an instrument called an activator, which puts a very small but fast impulse into a joint. And so there's certain practitioners that only use the activator. So, you know, where I really use a reasonable amount of force to get joints moving or to break the scar tissue down. So I'm trying to get that outcome as quickly as I can. If someone's using the activator, it might take a bit longer because it's a more gentle type of treatment. I think. I'm not an expert in that area, but that's my gut feeling on it, I'd say.
Yeah,
but then there's people that will see an activator chiropractor and they love it. That's what they want. So
it's very client dependent.
yeah, client dependent, 100%. So like I'm not the chiro for everyone, but then, you know, the people that do like what I do like it.
As a chiro, when you're like walking around in the streets and you see people with really bad posture with their necks hunched over or anything,
like me,
is it like does it ignite like a deep burning flame inside? You're just like, I know how to fix this. This is such an easy fix.
let me help you.
I just think my career's bulletproof forever, really, when I see that, because there's more and more young people walking around looking terrible.
Well, as long as people are always sitting down, sorry, Cam, as long as people are always studying, working, you're always going to have customers, right? Because people are just, especially now with what, typing and computers and everything.
Yeah.
Have you seen like enough?
That's exactly what I was going to ask later. Is there a bit more of a trend with people being on computers and electronics now, and you're seeing a sort of similar injury like emerge over time with people coming in with hunched necks from looking down at phones, that sort of thing?
I'm seeing it a lot. I'm seeing it an awful lot. And you know, pain's one factor of that. But my concern when I see people walking around with really bad posture is it's not a good... It doesn't look like a confident type of person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you don't see Roger Federer up when he wins Wimbledon, like he's like, I'm the man, right? And when he loses, he's there like crying like this, right? So you see them walking and it just immediately puts a mindset, I feel, like you're not performing at your best,
really
you're all shut down, you know? And when you're in that position, your lungs don't open up properly, you just can't perform like you're meant to. So I worry about people's pain, of course, but I just think it just isn't where you want to be.
I think the exuding confidence thing, because I hunch over quite a bit, and I was going to ask later, like, you know, it's hard to change, obviously, over time if you've but yeah, I don't know. What
it isn't, isn't it, mate? Like I've seen people really, if they stick to the, you know, like obviously it's not just a me thing fixing the posture. I can get it moving, but if you're going to sit like a banana for 40 hours a week, it's going to come back. So, you know, if people do the rehab, which is not hard, like it could be 10 or 15 minutes a day, if they do it consistently for a couple of months, like say 12 weeks, there'll be a massive change, huge change. You know, it's actually pretty quick to change, particularly in younger people, but it's wanting to do it. That's the thing. Like people can do it starting tomorrow, but they've got to decide they want to do it. That's the hardest thing. Most people will do something for a few weeks and then say, oh yeah, it's okay now. So that's that lifelong habit I'm talking about. Like my kids laugh. Every morning they know where to find me. I'm out the back stretching for 20 minutes. You know, so they'll get up and I'm out there on the mat. They're like, oh, Dad's stretching again. But it's just, you just do it. And once you've done it for a while, you do it every day.
I bet you don't get any headaches.
Not anymore.
Yeah. What's the link there? What the major, is it just...
Well, you'd have clients who would have migraines and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, all these little muscles up the back of your neck here refer pain right. They give you these sorts of headaches that come across right into the front of your head here. So if you're getting headaches and you sort of go, oh, it's coming from the back of the neck here, it's these little tight muscles in the back of the neck. But as your head goes forward with posture, they tighten and shorten and get chronically shortened. So it's about bringing the chin back and up. So
I just thought,
yeah. The problem is, mate, you're tall and you got to look down at little people like me. That's why you've got bad posture, mate.
Don't burst the ego.
I'm just trying to think of, are there any like really even just like, because you don't think about it if you know doing work or something. Obviously, you're not gonna. Well, no, there's strategies to just stop and put your shoulders back.
Well, you could wear one of those really sexy type of elastic things.
That's what I've seen ads for them. Do they actually work? Or are they?
Well, I think they do work. Some of them, the good ones do. Yeah, and I think it's trying to train you, really. So it's a bit of a Band-Aid, but it can be, like if someone's really deconditioned, I would say, well, look, why don't you use that for a few months just to get you at least woken up to it. But anyone who's got a reasonable amount of muscle still, you know, if you just do some basic back strengthening, it's pretty straightforward stuff. It's just getting stronger in the back and stretching out the front of your chest and you just start to open up. So most people neglect that. Everyone's doing their pec workouts, but they're not working their back out enough. So
I was trying to think. I don't know if you could tell anyone who have you had any big clients come in or any stories to brag about, people that have come to you for their
Oh, like famous people, you mean?
Yeah,
Or-
famous people, or
Yeah,
is there some sort of confidentiality that we can't cross into there?
Well, when Dan Sturridge was over playing for Perth Glory, he was in to see me a fair
Oh,
bit. Yeah, he
yeah.
quite liked Chiros, and I knew the physios down there, so they were happy to send him down to me. So that was pretty cool. And
Daniel Sturridge.
I've got a guy in at the moment who he's a real unit actually. He's going over to the Australia's strongest, trying to be the strongest man in Australia.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I treat him weekly at the moment to keep on top of him. So
He'd be pretty trickier.
he's a big boy.
Do you have like a bigger table for him when he comes in?
He needs 2 tables put together. Yeah, he's those guys are hard to adjust. So he has a lot of needling actually. Because he got his
You have
muscles.
so much stress on it all the time.
Yeah, man, he lifts some big stuff. Yeah, he's a big boy.
Any weird requests from clients when they come in?
No, luckily no.
Anyone falling asleep when you're doing the?
Oh yeah,
acupuncture on
no,
the
I love
back?
it. Yeah, like you come in there snoring, it's hilarious. Yeah,
How do you wake them up?
just clap next to their ear really loud, give them a shock.
Because obviously it's quite relieving, right? But naturally people are going to fall asleep if they're in their position. Just
Yeah, the
When you're
acupuncture
like-
does
yeah.
relax people a lot, actually. Yeah, really, that takes a lot of stress out of the body. So I work out of 2 rooms. So if someone's having extensive needling, we can leave them for 15 minutes. You give them a chance to really relax. It lets the body go. Yeah,
And you come back and they're
Yeah, they're
knocked out.
passed out. Yeah. Well, most people have such busy days, and who takes 15 minutes just to have some time
To
for themselves
stop
these
and-
days? We're all
Yeah,
just constantly between scrolling and work and everything else. No one takes time. But I think it's about the basics. I think if everyone just wants to take something away, like just stick to the basics, get plenty of movement, get your stretching in, have your water, look after yourself. If you're going to indulge in certain things, just balance it out with the better things in life as well. You can't just constantly, it's like your car, you can't drive it at full rev the whole time. You've got to give it time to recover and relax.
Is this type of stuff that you'll say to clients when they come in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you're
that's
getting a free consultation.
exactly.
Cara is kind of like a therapist, helps your back, helps your headaches, and then it also gives daily wellness tips.
Yeah, just have a good chat.
It's the full package.
That's it. We got it all.
I was going to say young people, because young people probably feel like they shouldn't be having, your back issues. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. We're sticking with this because we're talking about last week, obviously, we're talking about how young people can feel invincible. And then obviously testicular cancer rates are highest between 20 and 30, which is quite crazy. And, people might not, talk about their issues and go sort it out because they're embarrassed or whatever. I feel like young people could be, oh, I'm only young, it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to, nip it in the bud early if you think you've got some sort of...
Yeah, well, it's always okay till it's no longer okay. But the
Yeah.
problem is with your back. Once your back wears out, which is basically if your back's not moving properly, it's starting to wear out. Okay, so when your knee wears out, you can get a knee replacement. Like that's pretty standard these days.
get
or
a
hip
spine
right? But
replacement.
like having surgery on your spine's pretty
Whoa,
dicey,
yeah,
right? So
Christ.
the way I look at it is anything that keeps it mobile and moving better has got to be a good thing. So if you can manage that with a daily stretching routine, for example, well, that's a good thing, right? But then there's people that go, well, look, due to the stresses on my body from swimming to Roto or whatever, or just simply sitting and they don't want to do the stretching, well, they'll absolutely benefit from it. So it's about prioritizing it. And really, if you think about it this way, your spine's job is to protect your spinal cord whilst maintaining your mobility. Now, we all know when your spinal cord gets damaged, it's game over, right? So not saying, just wear and tear on your back is going to do that, but it's an important piece of architecture and it's very complex how it moves with all the little muscles that support it. So, for me, and obviously I'm a chiropractor, so I'm going to say this, but for me, keeping your back moving well is an absolute no-brainer from 20 years old up, really. But it's about people thinking that way and prioritizing it. That's a different thing altogether. But, once they come in and we take an x-ray, or if someone's got a really bad problem, we take an MRI, and once the disc is worn out, it's a tricky situation. So you're better to take whatever steps you can to avoid that scenario.
With neck training, is neck training a big thing, like weight resistance, neck training for injury prevention?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I've always thought that it wasn't possible, really. So that's why I work a lot on people really through their upper back. So when the upper back's right, it pulls the neck into place. But I know there's something called, I think it's called an iron neck that the big guy is talking about, the strong man, he uses, he's an ex-rugby player as well, where it sits around your head like a dome and it has like a hook so you can hang a cable off it at the gym and you can sort of rotate your head around and it stresses it in all angles. So I certainly think you can strengthen your neck, but like unless you're a Formula One driver or a rugby player or something like that,
A boxer.
you shouldn't really need to.
Formula One stuff is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, they're off the hook.
I keep seeing that video of Sergio. Shout out Carlos Sainz, who just won the Australian Grand Prix as well.
Yeah, great job.
I saw the footage of, you've got Sergio Perez with that, whatever, strapping around his neck, doing that. I don't know what sort of force they'd be putting into that.
It's in the Rocky training scene where he's got the big thing strapped around
his head.
his,
Yeah, awesome.
having the workout to,
Yeah.
because boxers all do
Oh.
neck training for injury prevention. 'Cause
Yeah, you'd have to, wouldn't you?
Have you ever treated any boxers?
I haven't had many boxes. Had one, but not for neck. But I guess the thing is, mate, like your head weighs about 8 kilos, right? So your neck's holding up a fair bit of weight all day anyway. So I think for normal people like us, it shouldn't be a huge drama unless you've got an injury there. But I think, once again, if you just get that posture open, get your back really strong, that'll support and get the head in the right spot. But, you can try out the iron neck and see how you go and get back to me if you want.
Well, it's an aesthetic thing as well, having a wider neck.
Well, yeah, is that a good or bad aesthetic?
Depends how wide your neck goes.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
There's some photos of guys with the widest
As
neck
wide
in
as
the
your
world.
head.
And then he's like in the same video with the guy with the skinniest neck in the world.
Classic.
But overall, with health and wellness, how important would you say your services are in that sort of realm of things?
Yeah, okay, that's a tough one to answer. I think if you're doing all of the things you need to do to be healthy, I think there's less requirement for someone like me. But if you are taking less personal care of your body and you just want it to be in someone else's hands, then it obviously is very important. So I wouldn't say everybody needs to see the chiropractor, but certainly people that want to feel great, want to move better, want to look after their back, that's certainly not a bad thing. And I've got clients that will come in and I'll say, hey, look, you're pretty good. You don't need to be in as regularly. Let's pop it out a bit, or you can see how you go. So it's not a one case fits all, but certainly if I'm checking someone out and there's movement problems and there's tension through their spine, then I'd say yes, they do need to be in. But once again, if it's someone like you who's super healthy and fit and look after yourself, there's less need for it. But there's definitely no harm in checking up, and just getting an honest opinion on where you're at, because you're better to know earlier. And I'll often say that to people your age. I'll say, look, we're better to find out now and see exactly what's going on, because you shouldn't be having back pain in your 20s really, unless you're doing something stupid. Like if you pick up 100 kilos of limestone, you hurt your back, that's one thing. But if just out of nowhere you start saying, gee, my back's really sore, something's not right. It shouldn't be like that. So if you're having those pains without any major driver, well, you need to know what the problem is, because then it's like, well, look, if I can say to you, if you don't do these core and glute exercises every day, by the time you get to 50, it's going to be a problem, So, and then they go, oh, okay, now I understand. A bit like when the guy showed me my x-ray when I was a young person and said, well, look how your pelvis is positioned, no wonder it hurts. Then I go, okay, boom, 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 click, click, click. Now I can understand the need for me to do these things. So sometimes you can change people's mentality by showing them the problem. And then they can say, yeah, actually, this guy's right. I need to spend 5 minutes a day strengthening my back. It's not hours a day. It's a minuscule amount of time, really.
And I feel like today, with gyms being a lot more commercialized, there's a lot of young kids in the gym doing like squats and things for the first
Poor
time.
technique,
with bad technique.
Yeah, does that make you cringe?
destroying their back, especially their lower back.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, mate, like I see, I don't go to the gym as much these days. I'm a big cyclist these days, but I have been to the gym certainly over the years, and I see people deadlifting and squatting badly, and I just think, mate, your disc is about 3 50-cent coins high and about as round as a 50-cent coin, right? So, if you're someone my size and you're squatting 120 or deadlifting 150 or 100 or whatever, it's a lot of force through your back. And if you don't do it perfectly, and then I think to myself, why do you need to do that? You know what I mean? Like people unless you're a big solid person, like I'd be better off doing less weight, but doing more reps to failure that way, rather than putting massive weight through a fairly fragile structure, really. Like a disc is not, it's quite a soft, it's a cartilaginous structure, so it's not super hard. So you can damage those. So.
Yeah, interesting. So I know you've talked about a lot of different things that can help with your general wellness and your back structure and that sort of thing. But overall, what would be the biggest, just the 3 biggest key takeaways that you can implement into your life to fix?
Yeah, I think
feel better.
You need to spend 10 minutes stretching every day. I've had clients who I've told that to for years, and then I've literally got them and shown them a daily 10-minute routine, and then they go, oh my God, it's so much better. I'm like, mate, I've been telling you that for 5 years. So, and then unfortunately that means they see me less because they're feeling better. So definitely want to be stretching. You want to be stretching every day. If you can do some core exercise, great as well. And then, mate, even just you need to move, like 5-6 times a week, not twice a week. So even if that's like a half-hour walk, it gets everything flowing through. Use all your muscles. Like even half an hour exercise every day, whatever you can do. So exercise daily. Stretch daily, and some core exercises like that. So if you can do those every day, you'll alleviate a lot of issues.
playing football especially, I never properly stretch. And obviously, as a tall person, you always need it more because my mobility is pretty poor sometimes. And so, yeah, I think this has always been a good session for me to really. And I think just thinking about the shoulders back, chest out. My dad keeps telling me, he's like, come on, like shoulders back, chest out. When I'll go out somewhere and I'm
But
like,
it is a confidence thing
why?
as well.
Like,
I like
but the
that.
confidence thing, but also like opening it all links in, opening up your lungs,
Yeah.
and then, you know, I don't know, neck back.
Well, so one more thing, like if we're talking about strengthening, like rows are the best, you know, like, but you got to do them really well, where you really pop your shoulders, really pull through, and then on the way out, keep your shoulders really pinned back all the way out. So keep tension through those shoulder blades. I mean, even if people did, you know, 3 sets of 10 every day, some rows, even if you can just get some dumbbells and do bend over rows, or get some rubber band from Rebel and do some banded rows, that'll really pull you back into position. So you can start with that, mate.
When you do rows, when you're at full extension, do you let your shoulders go over?
You let it go at the end. Yeah, you let them
okay.
fully out, and then you pop the shoulders first.
Yeah.
So you really squeeze them, pull through, keep them squeezed, and then keep them squeezed all the way back out and just let it go at the very end.
Because that letting go to re-engaging it helps trigger the whole movement.
100%.
Same with an erg, right? Like if you're doing erg.
Exactly.
It's almost the same with the pull-up where you...
Yep, 100%. All those things.
Even though I can't really do many pull-ups, but...
Well, you know, pull-ups are, you know, they're quite advanced actually. A lot of people hurt their necks doing pull-ups because they're not ready for it, you know, so you can do them banded. That helps a bit as well. But I think, you know, people should get...
I'm definitely on the band.
I'm a banded pull-up guy,
Yeah, but people shouldn't go from like nothing to starting to do pull-ups. Like there's a lot of, like you could do lat pull-downs before you start doing pull-ups for sure.
Right.
You know, but people go, oh, I'm going to go... That's from people go 0 to hero, and then after a month they come in ruined or something. But mate, you haven't exercised in 10 years, and now you're like smashing yourself. So just
ego
like,
boosting.
slowly.
I find I always engage my biceps over my back when I'm doing pull-ups. I struggle to get that back
You get it back.
activation.
Yeah. But once you get it, you get it.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
I'm still waiting for that day, but when it comes, I'll be so
You'll be
happy.
happy. Give me a call, tell me.
Well, thanks very much for your time, Pat.
Absolute pleasure.
We'll make sure to leave a link to your clinic in the description, so anyone that has any neck issues or wants a general wellness sort of checkup, back checkup.
And we do have quite a young
Demographic.
but you know, guys, like,
It's important.
don't be ashamed. Yeah, don't live your whole life with back pain just
poor
because
posture.
you know you don't nip it in the bud early.
Yeah.
And posture, yeah, I'll be trying to work on my posture, rolling my shoulders back and kind of.
Better get you booked in next week,
I
Gianni.
don't know. Yeah, I think that's what I need almost. But yeah,
Awesome.
thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
guys.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you for coming
Pat,
on.
That's great. Cool. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Matt.